Israeli forces advancing deep into western Khan Yunis in Gaza's bloodiest fighting of the new year so far stormed one hospital and placed another under siege on Monday, cutting the wounded off from trauma care, Palestinian officials say. Troops advanced for the first time into the Mawasi district near the Mediterranean coast west of Khan Yunis, the main city in southern Gaza. There, they stormed the Al-Khair hospital and were arresting medical staff. There is no immediate word from Israel on the situation at the hospital. The Palestinian Red Crescent said tanks had also surrounded another Khan Yunis hospital, Al-Amal, headquarters of the rescue agency, which had lost contact with its staff there. Kidra said that at least 50 people were killed overnight in Khan Yunis, while the sieges of medical facilities meant dozens of dead and wounded were beyond the reach of rescuers. EU foreign ministers have pushed for an eventual two-state solution with Israel and the Palestinians after the war in Gaza, while attending a gathering with the top diplomats from two sides and key Arab states in Brussels. The 27 EU ministers met first with Israel's foreign minister Israel-Hamas, who tells reporters his country is focused on returning the hostages and ensuring its security before they were due to sit down separately with the Palestinian Authority's top diplomat Riyad al-Maliki. The foreign ministers of Egypt, Jordan and Saudi Arabia also held talks with the European ministers.
I came here to meet my colleagues, the foreign minister for the EU, and to discuss with them about two main issues. First of all, to bring back our hostages, including this young baby, Kfir Bibas, that is 1 year old, and the young women, our brave soldiers, are fighting in very hard conditions for those two aims, to bring back our hostages and restore security for the citizens of Israel.
We expect our colleagues in the EU to come out strongly on the side of peace, on the side of international law, on the side of justice, demand a ceasefire, work with us on allowing sufficient humanitarian supplies into Gaza.
Well, let's cross live now to Tel Aviv and speak with Arise special correspondent Karl Bostic, who's live there. Karl, good to see you and thanks for your time. Well, there seemed to be some kind of renewed push from relatives of those kidnapped by the Hamas group. Tell us more.
Yes, what you had was a session at the Knesset, that's the Israeli parliament, of one of the committees that was meeting about the war. And all of a sudden, you had families of the remaining hostages storming into it, demanding more action on the release of the hostages. As many as 136 hostages still being held in Gaza. That's 108 days or 4 months, nearly 4 months since October 7th. And one of the relatives held up a poster, pictures of members of her family. She said, 3 of my relatives are in captivity in Gaza, at least just bring me back 1. And that's just the problem. You know, as this war goes into its 4th month, the fate of the hostages has become like a fault line about what the best strategy should be. At the very beginning of this war, since October 7th, triggered by this massacre on October 7th by Hamas, in which more than 1,200 people were killed and more than 240 people kidnapped, taken into Gaza, not to mention systematic accounts of sexual violence and abuse. They're simply saying, listen, this is not working. The Israeli government, at least the Netanyahu portion of the government, is saying that without military pressure, we can't get the hostages back. However, since that last ceasefire at the end of November, in which you had about 100 hostages released, there's been no movement, there's been no progress. And even though they officially say 136 hostages still remain in captivity, it's widely assumed that at least 27 of them are no longer alive, maybe even more. And at the same time, you have children and women and elderly people. You show that picture of that 1-year-old baby, Kafir Bibas. We don't even know if he's alive. But, they maintain, Israeli media, that he could still be alive because that's why people are still hopeful. And that's why you have a lot of pain, anger, and outrage for people, in Israel, where I am right now, that's very divided. The last point I'll make is that, you have a poll where 2/3 of Israelis here actually want the country to continue its military operation, in large part because of the hostages, but also because they don't want to repeat this same horror or tragedy again, because it's a threat to the Israeli state. And even liberal Israelis, when I say liberal, I mean secular ones who are not religious, ones who actually are very critical of the government. Their support of the government has now doubled from 21 to 41%, where they're basically saying that I didn't care about being Jewish before the war, but now I do care about being Jewish, not only because of the threats to Israel as a country of Jewish people, but because of the rising anti-Semitism in the war. And then finally, the last point I'll make is that you have a member of the War Cabinet, General Gadi Eisenkot. This is very important what he said. He gave an hour-long interview to Israeli TV. General Eisenkot, basically, he disagrees. He pushed back. He's saying, what have we accomplished after 4 months? We haven't dismantled Hamas. We haven't gotten back the hostages. More are under threat of being killed or dying each day. And the reason why people have to listen to him, because not only is he a former chief of staff, his own son was sent into Gaza to fight in December, and his own son was killed fighting in action. And then his nephew was also killed fighting in action in December. And that's why people here in Israel are so distraught.
Well, Karl, I think, I don't know if you can do this in about less than a minute. The two-state solution, which blatantly Netanyahu has rejected, what does this mean for the future of both parties?
Well, very simply, you've got the big divide or chasm between Western supporters, ranging from the U.S. to European allies, saying that that's the only solution, a two-state solution. But Netanyahu digging in his heels, saying that it's not going to happen while I'm prime minister, and that's the problem. The U.S. is looking forward to maybe in Israel after Netanyahu, and that's why there's a suggestion. General Eisenkot, who I just mentioned a moment ago, he's saying that even though we're in the middle of a war here, or Israelis are in the middle of a war here, there should be elections to change this coalition government, despite the fact that one extreme member of the cabinet saying that if you end the war now, you will end the government. And that's always been the threat hanging over Benjamin Netanyahu, where some are saying that he's putting his own political survival ahead of the interests of the country, or even the fate of the hostages.
Karl Bostic, many thanks for your time. Well, Karl Bostic live there in Tel Aviv.